Through tempests rage and plague's most grievous tests, he stood as a bulwark against adversity's tide, led his citizens with courage in his breast, and made our city known far and wide. So shall his legacy in marble stand, the mayor who raised Miami's fortune grand, Mayor Suarez. This is the kind of stuff we can do with AI.
I was going to say.
It took me about 2 seconds.
Okay, so now you're going to make me tell a story. This is completely off script. So I was asked to open the consulate of Morocco. Now, usually, as you know, Eric, when we go to events, we get talking points, people give us talking points and all that. And so I had not been reading my talking points lately. So I've been telling my staff, why don't you just give me 1 or 2 bullet points wherever I go, and I'll weave a story into it. Well, I go to, open up the consulate of Morocco, and there's only 2 bullet points. Bullet point number 1 is that there's direct flights to Casablanca. Bullet point number 2 is that it's the 3rd consulate in America for Morocco. Not that much to go on, right? So as I'm being introduced, I literally pull my phone out of my pocket, and I have the ChatGPT prompt on the phone, and I speak into the phone.
I would use Gemini.
Of course, I have the Gemini prompt. That's what I meant. Yes, of course, I meant Gemini, of course. I have the Gemini prompt, and I speak clearly into the Gemini prompt. Stand corrected. Know your audience, KYC. So I have the Gemini prompt, and I say, pretend you're the mayor of Miami, and you're about to open the Moroccan consulate. And you only have 2 facts. Fact number 1 is there's direct flights to Monaco.
Pretend you're the mayor of Miami.
Pretend you're the mayor of Miami, right? Okay. Fact number 1 is direct flights to Casablanca. Fact number 2, it's the 3rd consulate opening in the US. What would you say? Before they finished introducing me, and before I walked to the stage, Gemini had written this entire speech for me. I read it word for word. People were crying, laughing, hugging me. You know our country so well, Mr. Mayor. How have you known about us so much and so deep? So yes, thank you for that incredible
so
true story, by the way.
And one more piece of congratulations, which I'm sure you'll appreciate. No one has ever done an American Business Forum at this scale in America. This is an innovative mayor as well. And I really want you to think about doing this all around America, because business is what we do, and America's growth depends on the kind of things we're talking about today. What's interesting is that about 3.5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, there's a moment in San Francisco where people realized that these models could write, and boy, could they write.
Oh, yeah.
That's a real discovery moment. It's one of those historic moments in history, similar to physics and chemistry and things like that.
It's incredibly disruptive, and I appreciate the comments. And of course, it's a team effort. Nacho, whose vision it was to bring it from Uruguay. Sergio, who's our big investor. Where are you, Sergio? You're here somewhere, I'm sure. He'll be here any minute. Steve, who helped me, my cousin, who helped me put this together. But let's get back to the interview. Eric, you're obviously a world-renowned figure and tech pioneer. Did you have an inkling that you were destined for greatness? What was it about you, about your DNA? Was it your tenacity? I mean, what is the sort of the components of you that made you supersede?
I think the most important thing to say, anyone who's on stage here, start with luck. I was lucky to be born now. I was lucky to be born in America. My parents were academics. I had an awful lot of people who helped get me through the various stages of life. One of the things that we, who are now older, owe the younger people is to give them the same opportunity. Right? It's really important. And I was thinking about what should be a theme for this audience. And everyone in America is obsessed about everything except for one thing, which is the human talent. Right. And the human talent of America is why we are exceptional. Focus on humans. Focus on their education and their culture and their development and their curiosity and their energy and their tenacity and so forth, and help them with the various travails that happen in life. Focus on the humans of America. It's the only answer.
You know, you're a great leader. You've been a great mentor to me and friend,
God.
and you're an incredible coach. And I think, I've read some books on some of the people who coached you. What's the coaching habit that you think you consistently use to raise the level of the team?
So I wrote a book about. So I had a coach named.
This is the book I
Campbell.
read, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. We actually talked about it. I had a coach named Bill Campbell, and when I started at Google, the venture capitalist John Doerr said, "You need a coach." And I said, "I'm a big boy. I've run a lot of companies. I don't need a coach." And he said to me, "Do tennis players have coaches?"
Absolutely.
And I knew he had trapped me, right? Because the answer is, of course, they do, even though they may not be as good as the actual tennis player. Coaches do different things. And so we hired, or retained, if you will, Bill Campbell for free, became my best friend at the time. And what he coached was not an individual, but a team. And the thing I learned from Bill is, as a CEO, you manage the team. You don't manage the individuals. And you work on the team dynamics, but fundamentally it's a team sport. He was a football coach, and not a particularly good one, but he was an extraordinary human leader. And there's a book, $1 Trillion Coach. If we were to write the book today, he died unfortunately some years ago, it would be called the $7 Trillion Coach, because he was the coach for Apple and Google. Think about it.
I think he was a Princeton coach, right?
No,
Yep.
Columbia. His winning record was terrible.
Like 0-10 or something like that, yeah.
So, but leadership, but I now understand that I needed coaching, my team needed coaching, and the way I manage is I manage as sort of CEO and coach. And you watch what's going on, and you try to get people to work together. And there are various techniques, like tell the people who talk too much to let the people who don't talk as much talk more. I mean, stuff like that.
You know, I also didn't believe that much in coaching, and my coach is probably somewhere here in the audience, Louis Arahu. I don't know if Louis is here somewhere. There he is. There's my coach right there. He's a great guy. So for someone that's starting out in tech, what's sort of the mindset or the practice that you think is going to compound the most over the next decade?
So if you look at success, it's a combination of intelligence, that is, ability to do the work, and grit. And I would add intelligence, grit, and curiosity. When I was young, I was a sponge for everything, because I didn't seem to know anything, or I thought I knew nothing. And the internet had not really been invented yet. It was just getting started. And so we didn't have the resources we have today. If I were a 16 or 18-year-old or 20-year-old, whatever, right now, I would be online all the time just learning, because I would be curious and I want to know everything. Mayor, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your family. Tell me what you do. How did you get here? What are the problems? And I trained myself to look at businesses and say, how do they work? Right? Like, how does this place work? How did you fund this? What was it your idea? Who did you work with?
Pain.
But that's grit, right? So you have to have the intelligence. I have all sorts of friends who are brilliant who can't get through the day, right? They wake up, they have an idea, they have another idea. Nothing happens with them. It's the people who have an idea that's very clever and they have the tenacity to push it. Those things come from curiosity. Another example, and this, I think, the technology that we're in is so extraordinary and I'm so excited about it, but there are some things we've lost. One of them that we've lost is the looking out the window phenomena. And there's some evidence that looking out the window is fundamentally important for curiosity. So here's an example for all of you. When you're leaving here today sometime, turn off your phone, tell everyone who's around you to shut up in a nice way, and look out the window and daydream. That daydream is important too, because that's how the creative thoughts come.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, look, I think for me, failure has always been a great teacher. Pain, as we said. What are the sort of high quality failures that you've had in your life that you think have sort of permanently changed how you think about the world or how you lead?
I think when you're running stuff, you make lots of mistakes. So I hold myself responsible for not getting ahead. We had the technology to do what Meta is doing now, and we didn't implement it fast enough, right? That's what I hold myself responsible.
Sure.
But in general, if you just keep pushing, it works. And one of the key ideas about success is just keep doing stuff. What happens in organizations, especially if I can be honest, in middle age, is everything becomes sort of normal. And I was interested in in the innovation culture of America, Ken Burns is a friend of mine, and I was watching him, and he was asked, "Is America in crisis?" And he said, "Oh, I think it's in perpetual crisis. We've always been disagreeing, and our revolution is the thing." So when you understand that the system is not designed to be static, it's designed to be dynamic, and it's a jump ball, then you can do it. I've consistently been slow to see that if I do self-criticism, and I've consistently assumed that stable systems were always stable. Humans can always change the system if you need to. Figure out a way to change it to make it a better place.
You know, you've run a big company. I'm running a $1.5 billion company, which is the city of Miami with 5,000 employees and 4 labor unions. The decisions that we make and that we've made affect thousands of people.
Yeah.
How do you deal with doubt in the face of understanding the implications of those decisions and how they impact people?
I was talking to, I've talked to the various presidents that I've had an honor to meet. And when you actually talk to how the president operates, there are moments in a presidency when the president makes a decision where they have no idea what's going to happen, and yet they make the decision anyway. That's, I think, how you have to operate. Obviously not, none of us have that kind of responsibility, thank God. But fundamentally, if it gets to you, it shouldn't be an easy decision. The people who work for you should be able to handle these things. One way to think about it is the really complex problems are ones that you participate in, you lead the team, and you make a bet, and you iterate and iterate and iterate. All success is fundamentally a genius, and then iteration and essentially just constant evolution. And you're always failing, you're always trying things, that didn't work, and so forth. One of the geniuses of America is that people who can go bankrupt can be rehired and become hugely successful. Many of my favorite entrepreneurs, the first I didn't work, the second I didn't work, the third I didn't work, and the fourth, boom, right? So never stop trying.
On a similar note, when a project is deeply uncertain, but potentially transformative, how do you communicate your vision and guide your team through that uncertainty?
What I try to do is I try to frame the question correctly. Usually, if you can ask, so let's start with the basic principle. Don't tell people to do, ask what people want to do, right? But frame the question. Okay, this is what we want to do. What is the best idea? Because frankly, people don't like to be told what to do. They like to be asked, right? And the key leadership is to frame the question or the goal in such a way that everyone kind of gets it. A simple rule is you have to repeat it at least 20 times before people believe you. So I become very repetitive. Another thing I do, which may be going out of favor because nobody uses email anymore, is I'm constantly writing down, this is what I think, this is where we should do, what do you guys think, and so forth. So it's much more interactive. And the strategies evolve. And then you get some great product manager who can brilliantly expose the result of this process, but it fundamentally starts from saying, what is our goal? So we want to win, okay, what does that mean? Another thing I do that works well is I start by saying, where will we be in 5 years? Humans are terrible at predicting past the next 12 months, right? If you force people to say, what will be true in 5 years, you get a very different answer. So here's an example. The cost of AI tokens, that is the delivery of queries, is going down by a factor of 10 every year.
Amazing.
So 5 years, 10 to the fifth, 5 to the, you can do the math. It's a very large number. What happens when the cost of my little sonnet is so cheap, it's just everywhere? Right. All in praise of you, Mayor.
Of course.
What does that mean? Think backward. Almost every business fails to understand the compounding of these technologies.
You know, innovation is often referred to as managed chaos. Okay. How do you explain that sort of juxtaposition, that tension between managing and something that's somewhat organized or ordered and chaos?
It has to do with the structure of goals. You want to think a lot about goal alignment. In corporations, it's pretty easy because everybody has stock options, they have a common goal. It's much harder in what you do because there's multiple goals. So if I were you, if I were running the city, which fortunately you're doing and I'm not, I would sit down and say, what are the real goals?
Prioritize.
Right? Healthcare, safety, economic growth, welfare, inward, and I'd measure them. Set the goals, measure them, articulate them, repeat, repeat, repeat.
So how do you protect true innovation from the bureaucracy that inevitably grows around that success and can stifle that same innovation?
In software, which is what I've done from 50 years, which is, I think, largely going away because AI is beginning to write software. My simple rule was that 3 people would invent something new, like the Chrome browser or the Android operating system or so forth, and then it would take 1,000 people to finish it. And I kept thinking, why do we need so many people? And there's this constant problem of every team, engineering team, management team, getting bigger and bigger. You want lean teams. The lesson over and over is lean teams. Another example, I have a rule with the companies I'm running now that if we do new things, you can only have 10 people, you can't have 11. When we go into a new country, you can have 10 people, but not 11. Because I figure 10 people is a group that's kind of a manageable group. It's self-managing, they know each other, they can figure it out and so forth, and you can judge the team. So what happens if you're not disciplined about that is you get people who I call glue people, and I mean this in the most affectionate way. They are very nice people. They glue person A to person B, and you discover you don't need them. Person A can talk to person B without the person in between.
Yeah.
And that glue person slows everything down. So time to decision, quickness, small teams, and agile thinking is important. My experience in talking about this around the world is everyone goes like this. And this means I'm a human, and I'm breathing, and I'm listening to you. It does not mean I'm going to do anything. So if you hear these ideas, unless you implement the things I'm talking about, you won't get the benefit. Knowledge is not sufficient. You actually have to take the leadership. And that's when it gets tough, because you're talking about very protected groups, protected individuals, and so forth. The great business people know when to push those and when not to. And that's a judgment.
So of course, moving on to AI. AI is going to be the most powerful tool humanity's ever created. It's also potentially going to be the most dangerous. Let's watch this clip.
A new age has begun, one not written in ink, but in code.
This innovation, this arrival of this new alien incredible intelligence.
Artificial intelligence, the most powerful tool humanity has ever created, and perhaps its greatest test.
The most important thing that's going to happen in about 500 years, maybe 1,000 years in human society.
Few understand it better than Schmidt, the man who helped shape the digital world as we know it. Today he stands at the frontier of innovation and responsibility, asking the question that will
televisión. Blockchain es una tecnología basada en una cadena de bloques de operaciones descentralizada y pública. Esta tecnología genera una base de datos compartida a la que tienen acceso sus participantes, los cuales pueden rastrear cada transacción que hayan realizado. Para que se hagan una idea, es como un gran libro de contabilidad inmodificable y compartido que van escribiendo.
That these technologies can address. Healthcare is one obvious one. The arrival of intelligence for every single human being, right? Having an assistant that's as smart or smarter than you, the Einstein in a pocket. Just imagine all of that. These things, it's very hard to predict what will happen with this amount of new intelligence. Remember I said the most important are humans. Well, now we have humans plus the AI. There are plenty of downsides, right? And we can talk about them. But the most important thing is this stuff needs to be built in America, on our values, with our views. And I feel very, very strongly about this. I want American, I'll use the word liberalism in the classic sense. America's rule of law, its individual freedom, its distrust of the government, the combination of that individualism, the frontier belief is really, really important. And we're on a revolutionary frontier here. A simple example is, imagine if the internet had been invented in China. Just think about it. Just think about how different it would be and how different your experience would be on it.
By the way, after that sonnet, there's no offense taken whatsoever. Okay, so first question was a little bit provocative. I think my second question is the following. The acceleration of the intelligence is so profound that the question becomes, are these systems going to have their own consciousness? Mm-hmm. And if they have their own consciousness, are they going to be able to make decisions independent of the prompting? Which means if they're smarter than us and they're independently prompted, can they figure out more intelligently than we can how to prevent us from turning them off?
Yes, you're now writing a movie script that I think we're going to see a lot of movies written about. So for a bit of background right now, these AI systems are prompted by humans. The technical term is called prompt engineering. And young people in college will go to prompt engineering class where they'll learn how to manipulate these models in really, really powerful ways. That's not general intelligence. That's special intelligence. So if I'm a physicist, which I'm not, I'll have my physics assistant and I'll say, I have the following idea, and the physics assistant will say, well, I've analyzed that, here's a better idea for you. But the invocation or the initiation occurs from the human. The question is, when do these systems, when are they able to initiate on their own? The technical term for that is called recursive self-improvement. They just naturally learning and getting smarter. And there are all sorts of terrible scenarios. It discovers that the only thing the computer needs is electricity, so it decides to shut down a hospital to get more electricity for itself. Those are the kind of movie scenarios. To me, all of these are red lines. The point at which we humans give agency to these computers for what they do is a mistake. And I think collectively we need to define those red lines. Another example would be access to weapons. The last thing I want is an AI system making decisions about nuclear war, nor do any of us. That kind of thing.
I have a bunch of questions from that. Because the problem is with that is certainly, and we see this sort of play out geopolitically, the US, we presume, will be responsible. The question is, how do we deal with people who may have this that are not responsible? Yeah. Well, number one. And I'll give a little bit of hope to humanity. This is the second time I interview Eric, by the way. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this the first time, just to give humanity a little bit of hope. Obviously, nuclear weapons have been around for a generation, but for the first time that they were employed, thankfully, we've limited this technology to something that has not so far destroyed us. So I guess my question is, we can potentially have faith in our country, hopefully, to do the right thing and draw those red lines. How do we deal with the nefarious actors who may not be so ethical?
We're going to have this problem. Every technology, I mean, when Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, it didn't occur to him that criminals would use it. I remember one day people said, did you know that there are criminals on the internet? And I said, who let them in, right? We didn't design the internet for criminals, and they showed up, right? So you have to assume the same thing is going to happen with this technology. And I think the most important thing is to put in the observational systems to watch for it. And we should be able to create surveillance systems within the internet to watch for bad actors, at least in the extreme cases. I'm worried about it for the following reason. In our lifetimes, in the next 5 or 10 years, every single human on the planet who has a mobile phone, cell phone, will have access to Einstein, Leonardo da Vinci, whomever, in some form. We've never had that devolution of power. We've never had that decentralized empowerment of humans. Now, this group, I trust. There's an awful lot of wacky countries and wacky cultures and wacky religions, where I'm not sure I would trust their collective action being consistent with our values.
For sure.
Right. And I think history will judge us based on how we make how we handle the humans as this intelligence evolution occurs and empowers individuals.
So the most famous use case, obviously, of AI right now is the large language models. I mean, they're the ones that are being used day in and day out. What would you say are probably going to be, let's say, the top 1 or 2 or 3 next use cases that you think are going to change things? And maybe 1 or 2 that people aren't thinking about?
Well, so today there are sort of 3 things going on. I'll simplify it. Language stuff, that's what we were joking about with large language models. There's something called the agentic revolution, where you have agents. An agent takes language in, it has memory, and it produces something. So it says, I want to do a conference in Miami. And it selects the venue, and then it calls the mayor, and the mayor says yes, because the mayor is very pro-business. And then it calls the security people, and then it calls the contractors, and then it designs the stadium. Each of these is a work plan, right? Over and over again, that's workflow. Workflow is what happens in business. The technical industry believes 2 things. First, the scaling laws, which are the laws of improvement, are not slowing down. The crazy investment that you see is there for a reason. They're seeing the kind of gains, this factor of 10 every year, are continuing to come. It's pretty amazing. And most importantly, with that investment comes everything else that we talked about. It's enormously expensive. And by the way, we're going to run out of electricity before we run out of money, which is a separate discussion. But the important thing is you have language. The next thing, and then you have agents, and these agents do everything. There's something called agent orchestration, where you can move the agents around. And the third one is essentially reasoning. You now have systems that can pass math tests, chemistry tests, biology tests, and so forth at the graduate level and beat the humans. That's really remarkable. And I've watched them, and I have no idea what problems they're solving. And you can watch them go forward, it doesn't work, they problem solve like a human being. The union of those is the power. That will give us the power to innovate, to address our problems. And the thought experiment that I would give you is, let's imagine that one of the American companies, I obviously have my own bias, but we'll pick somebody else, whoever, manages to get to the point where these systems can solve problems that humans have never been able to solve. What is the value of that company? How many trillions of dollars in one company?
Infinity.
Right, it's literally, I mean, think about all the problems you face every day, and it can solve every one of them. And you can sit there and drink coffee and, sort of.
My wife just solves most of them, but that's okay.
That's right. The important thing is that we're on the threshold of being able to have truly new innovation. And that's the hype, that's the promise. If we don't get there, people will be destroyed just from their own hype. I mean, it's extraordinary.
I'm going to ask one last question. It's a follow-up to the problem that you presented. Is SMRs, which are small-scale modular reactors, is that the solution for that energy gap that you're talking about, or is it going to be something else?
We need more energy in America. We need every kind of energy. We need nuclear. We need fusion. We need natural gas. We need renewables. We need wind. We need solar. We need it all. Why? Because those data centers, which account for 1% of GDP growth this year in America, need power. If you want that 3% growth that the president and others have talked about, you need to solve the energy problem.
Eric, thank you so much. What a provocative conversation.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Can I read one thing?
Go, of course.
I was thinking a lot about, you gave me the honor to talk to this incredible group about the frontier. In 1893, a fellow named Frederick Turner talked about the frontier. And he said, "To the frontier, the American intellect owes its striking characteristics." This is 150 years ago. "That coarseness and strength combined with acuteness and inquisitiveness, that practical, inventive turn of mind, quick to find expedients, that masterful grasp of material things, lacking in the artistic but powerful to effect great ends, that restless, nervous energy, that dominant individualism, working for good and evil, and with all that buoyancy and exuberance which comes with freedom. These are the traits of the frontier. This is America. This is us. This is why we're here. This is why you're a great leader. Thank you very much.
That was in 1893.
1893.
You know what happened 3 years later?
What's that?
You know what happened 3 years later?
What?
The city of Miami was established. 1896.
1896.
There you go.
Happy birthday to Miami.
There we
Thank
go.
you. Okay, Mayor. Okay,
you,
good.
my friend.
Thank you, guys.
At the Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom, you don't just learn, you achieve. Through our interdisciplinary Bachelor of Science in Business and Government Leadership, you'll gain perspective, innovate, and connect with real-world leaders.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
De movilizar a su voto belicista de cara a esas elecciones en los estados cuya gobernación estaba, en cierto modo, en duda. Y es muy posible que la amenaza de guerra nuclear no vaya dirigida contra Rusia, si es que realmente lo es. Bueno, guerra nuclear, de reanudación de pruebas nucleares. Quizás vaya dirigida hacia China, porque China actualmente tiene en su mano la continuidad de producción armamentística convencional por parte de Estados Unidos. Es decir, si China, una vez que termina la moratoria de entrega de tierras raras, decide no continuar entregando tierras raras, Estados Unidos no podría hacerle una guerra a China en el ámbito convencional, porque obviamente no tendría capacidad